The World Bank recently held a series of high-level ministerial summits to help craft Africa's agenda on issues like agriculture and energy ahead of this year's climate change meeting known as COP17 to be held in South Africa in November. Buntu spoke to Jamal Saghir, who's Director of Sustainability at the World Bank, began by asking him what he'll be telling the World Bank and IMF meeting that's taking place as of tomorrow in Washington, D.C.
Africa is on the move. What we see in Africa nowadays is different Africa that we have seen 5 or 10 years ago. We see economic growth, we see financial activity, we see capacity building, we see industry flourishing, we see financial transaction. And what we see here, we're not even seeing in some European countries nowadays. So growth in some African countries is much higher than what we have seen in Europe or United States or Canada. So I think that the Africa voice on developing agenda, on crafting the COP17 to go beyond the pure environmental agenda and to include energy as an important aspect of the economic agenda as well as agriculture are very important. Many of the poor in the continent are farmers, and therefore it's very important to talk about agriculture. It's the living of more than 70% of the poor on the continent. On the energy, once again, 30% people don't have access to energy. And even those that have access to energy don't have it in a reliable way.
The World Bank is looking with keen interest on COP17, and it must be very interested in the outcomes provided they are successful. What is the World Bank hoping for out of COP17?
We hope that the discussion around agriculture, about access, about deforestation, about what has been discussed in Bali, what has been discussed in Copenhagen, can be now focused on how to move to actions that could be implementable. And the World Bank will stand ready to help implement and discuss the Green Fund, different use of investment, public-private partnership, and other form also of financing.
Despite agriculture providing up to 70% of all employment in the continent, Africa is fast urbanizing and moving towards urban mega cities. How do you plan to reconcile agriculture and urbanizing Africa?
It's clear that as we talk, almost 50% of the continent is being urbanized. We're not going to have only small city. We're going to see large city being developed more and more and quicker. We're going to see more migration from the rural area to the peri-urban area, and therefore it's very important to think what kind of peri-urban area are being developed, what service we provide, because we have to make sure that those peri-urban areas, people have job. We don't want to see what happened in some other countries in the world where basically the violence is developed in the peri-urban in the city. So, on the other hand, it's very important, since agriculture remains a main source of income for almost 70% of the poor on the continent, if any transformation has to happen, is also to develop commercial agriculture. In other words, how can we take this farmer in his rural area, in her rural area, and make them become part of supply chain and become entrepreneur, become in the business community, while staying where they are. And therefore, if they can be part of a community of suppliers and be part of the system, they will not move to the city. They will remain agriculture. If you look at countries like Japan, among the few countries where they have few large cities, but they were able to keep the rural developed. How? By providing a network of service in the rural area, including very sophisticated transport system, very sophisticated electricity system, so that people stay in their area, develop that sub-area, and mushroom and get a balanced economic development, different pole growth. We have to think about growth pole in different areas of the countries, whether in South Africa or in Tanzania or in Kenya, Nigeria, or any of these countries in the continent.